morning, Namibia and the world, and a very warm welcome to today's edition of the information sharing sessions here at the Government Information Center. And on this wonderful Wednesday morning, the 29th of November 2023, we welcome you in Namibia. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is the Government Government Information Center, and you are live. You are going to be listening and viewing the CRAN update today. Now, Namibia, this is a national platform that was initiated by the government of the Republic of Namibia to serve as a conduit for transmitting information on government capital projects, programs, policy formulation and advancement within the respective OMAs, that is offices, ministries and agencies of government. And of course, the aim is to improve information dissemination across all organs of government. For this morning's edition, I am your host, Hileni Philippa Samunyela, and I am delighted and honored to introduce to you, Namibia, the CEO of CRAN, that is Communications Regulatory Authority of Namibia, Mrs. Emilia Ngikembwa, to brief the Namibian nation on her institution's update. Ms. Ngikembwa, once again, good morning. You may step up the podium. You may go ahead with your address.
Yes, thank you very much and good morning. We want to start by appreciating this opportunity that has been granted to us to brief the nation on the activities of CRAN as far as our integrated business strategic plan is concerned. I want to start firstly by saying that CRAN is the Communications Regulatory Authority of Namibia. We are a public enterprise that has been established by an Act of Parliament, and we are primarily responsible for the regulation of telecommunication services as well as broadcasting, postal services. We are also responsible for the allocation of radio spectrum, which is the resource that is used to transmit radio waves both for telecommunication services as well as broadcasting. As of recent, our mandate has also been expanded to the management of cybersecurity through the creation of a cyber incidents response team that will be housed by CRAN. We are currently in the first year of our strategy cycle for the period 2023 to 2026, which is themed continuing to create value through harnessing the power of ICT. Now, this theme builds on celebrating a decade of value created through harnessing the power of ICT in Namibia. It is a forward-looking theme and it embraces the continuation of creating value through the strategic cycle, which will end in 2026. Now, our strategic plan has 4 strategic thematic areas, and under those 4 thematic areas, we have divided 10 strategic objectives, which is really what guides and inspires the work that we are doing as a regulator. The first strategic theme is organizational sustainability, and under this we have 3 objectives, one being to improve employee engagement as well as corporate wellness, the other one being to improve business processes, usage of systems, tools as well as functionalities, and then the last one being to improve financial sustainability. Now, the theme on organizational sustainability is very inward-looking as far as our setup as an organization is concerned. The other 3 themes, which are outward-looking, is strategic partnering and collaboration, and this really looks at us improving our customer as well as our stakeholder satisfaction. The big one is the theme on digital transformation, which seeks to assist us in improving regulatory effectiveness as well as the deployment of digital infrastructure and quality of service. Then the last theme speaks to market development and consumer protection, and it has objectives that speak to increasing universal access to communication services, improving consumer protection, as well as the affordability of services. Now, As part of our monitoring and implementation, and really to ensure that we are held accountable as far as the implementation of our strategy is concerned, we have a very comprehensive performance management system, which is informed by a performance management policy. The performance cycle coincides with our financial year, which means it runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March. And we have 2 semester appraisals. One is from April to September, which is the report that we'll be sharing today. And then the last semester is from October to 31 March, which is then the current period where we are in now, which makes up our quarter 3 as well as quarter 4. We also have a balanced scorecard approach in terms of where we cascade the strategy onto an annual business plan, which is approved by our minister. And then from the annual business plan, we cascade KPIs for the board, who is also then appraised. And then we cascade further to the CEO, executive management, as well as the rest of the organization. Our performance management framework is also reward-based, which means that if employees perform and meet those KPIs that have been set out in the integrated business plan, then there is a reward that they would receive for that. We also have a business strategy office, which is housed under the office of the CEO, which is linked to organizational development. And the essence of this is really just to ensure that the implementation of our strategy receives the correct amount of resources, but also to enhance our monitoring and implementation capabilities. So the report that I will be giving this morning is then key achievements that we have attained for the period 1 April to 30 September. And as I indicated before, we have a number of themes. Some are outward looking in terms of the landscape and positioning ICT as an economic enabler, and others are inward in terms of making sure that the business is sustainable, but that the employees are also taken care of so that they can execute the mandate. But I will speak a lot on the outward looking initiatives. Now, the first one, which speaks to improving digital infrastructure, is that we have released spectrum for the 700 and the 800 megahertz bands for the deployment of 4G and 5G networks. Now, 4G is critical because in the Harambee Prosperity Plan, the target has been set that by the end of the plan, we must have 80% 4G population coverage. And the most important thing that we want to report today is that as at 30 September this year, we have exceeded the HPP target because 4G coverage is now sitting at 85% population coverage across the country. What we have, however, picked up is that while on average the population or country level is good, we are picking up that there are regions that do currently not have the adequate 80%. And these are regions such as Kunene, Zambezi, Ochodunjupa, Omaheke, Hardap, as well as the Kavango West. And what we have then done as part of releasing the spectrum is we have imposed additional conditions on the operators so that they can then roll out 4G in the 6 regions that I have listed, and the target is really that these regions should then also exceed 80%. The second aspect that we have achieved in the period under review is the establishment of a cyber incidents response team. Now, we have done a lot of work to really position ICT as a socio-economic enabler, but with all good things, there's always a downside. And the indication that we have received is that we need to establish a platform that would coordinate the occurrence of cyber incidences within the country. And government has given us seed funding for this, and we have done a lot of work in terms of building our constituents list, finalizing the budget, finalizing the recruitment, and the target is really that by the first quarter of 2024, we will then formally launch the CERT, which will then be responsible for the coordination of all cyber activities within the country. The other milestone that we have achieved under digital infrastructure is the award of spectrum for the deployment of a 5G network in Namibia. Now, we all have been very familiar with 2G, 3G, and 4G, but because of technological innovation, there is a new technology that is then called 5G. Now, 5G is not different from the other Gs. The only difference is that it has better enhanced capabilities and it supports a lot of the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things. And Cabinet has approved the strategy that CREN formulated, and in terms of that strategy, we have then awarded the spectrum. We have also given some of the operators permission to start testing so that they can make sure that their network is efficient. In addition to that, we would all recall that during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of information around, is there a relationship between 5G and COVID-19? And what we have done as part of the rollout of 5G technology is we launched yesterday a 5G consumer awareness campaign where we are really going around the country and utilizing different platforms to educate the public about the correct information pertaining to 5G and also to educate industry about the benefits that would come from 5G. And the consumer awareness campaign is really crafted as part of our bigger change management plan so that we can sell technology as a socio-economic enabler for our country. The other important thing that we have done in the past 6 months is that of positioning our country as a strategic partner as far as the deployment of ICT is concerned. And during the period under review, Namibia, through CREN, was elected as chairperson of the National Broadband Policy Steering Committee. We are also championing some of the agenda items at the World Radio Conference that is currently underway in Dubai. And we have also been elected to serve on the Africa Telecommunications Council. This is the body of all telecommunications regulators across Africa. And this really indicates that we are becoming, as a country, well positioned and actively contributing to the bigger discourse of ICT and digital transformation from an international as well as a regional perspective. On the regulatory effectiveness objective, we always try to position ourselves to have a regulatory framework that is responsive to the needs of industry as well as to the needs of the consumers. And during the period under review, one of the biggest activities that we have done is we have revised the type approval regulations. Now, type approval speaks to when your telecommunications devices are coming into the country, they must be approved by CREN. This is firstly to ensure that the devices are of the correct standards and quality and that they do not cause any harm to the health of Namibians, because we know that telecommunications devices work with radiation, and if the correct standards are not implemented, then they can easily cause harm to public health. So the one thing that we have done is we have then revised the regulations that we have in place just to tighten them up a bit to ensure that the process works smoothly, but also that consumers are then protected, but also because we understand that the importation of devices into the country is also an e-commerce activity, and we do not want to have processes that are stifling e-commerce activities, and this is why we then also felt the need to revise those. On the consumer protection initiatives, our role here is really firstly to make sure that the consumer is educated about the products and services that are offered by our operators, but also that if the consumer is then not satisfied with the level of service that they are receiving from the consumers, I beg your pardon, but from the operators, that there is a platform and an enforcement and a mediation mechanism that they can follow. And we have a fully fledged department that is dedicated to assisting consumers that are not satisfied either with the services or the products or the quality of the service that they are receiving from the service providers. And what we have done in the past 6 months is really also to launch campaigns that are targeted to educate consumers. We've done some work around postal services. We've done work around e-waste as well as SIM registration. Now, on the SIM registration front, I think the communication has really been ongoing, and in the past month or so, we have communicated to the public about the level of implementation as at 30 September, and we also continue to really share and spread that message that consumers must go out to register their SIM cards before the due date, which is 31 December of 2023. Other activities that we have performed pertain to affordability of ICT services and products. And in the last quarter of 2022, we had commissioned a pricing study which was investigating the affordability of data as well as voice prices in Namibia. Now, the ultimate aim of this study was really to ensure that ICT services become more accessible, that we promote digital inclusion, and that we ultimately bridge the digital divide. And the last consultations were held in November 2022, and how we've done this is we've really shared with the operators what are the concerns, where are the bottlenecks, how do we fare as a country compared to other countries in the SADC region, but also on the continent as far as affordability is concerned. And we then threw the ball in the court of the operators to try and see if on their own, without a price cap, they can try and see how they can bring the cost down. The push that we have been giving the operators is that at least 1 gigabyte of data must cost not more than 15 Namibian dollars. And the good news is that with the assessment that was done at the end of Q2, and already it started, I think the trend started already at the beginning of Q1, is that as far as our affordability ranking is concerned, we have improved, but it's primarily because some of our operators took the pricing study and implemented some of those recommendations. And this is why you'd find that there is a lot of products on the market which are better enhanced to serve the needs of the consumers. And this is really work that is continuing, and we will continue to engage the consumers. What we have also seen as a trend is that the number of SIM cards in the country would have also come down because of the affordability ranking that has improved. And this was primarily because in the past, consumers would have more than one SIM card. So when this service provider has a promotion, then they would utilize that SIM card for their data, and when the other one, and then they would be switching in between the two. But because the competition has heightened a bit, you'd see that consumers are more and more moving away from 2 SIM cards because they can then stick to one service provider that they find affordable. The other issue with digital transformation is that we believe it can only be achieved if we attain what is called meaningful connectivity. Now, meaningful connectivity really means that consumers have the devices, that the devices are affordable and they can utilize those devices, but that the service that they are using on the devices is also affordable. And this is why in the last 6 months, one of our milestones is we've completed a model that we are designing for a taxation study. And the taxation study is really aimed at demonstrating if we were to relieve some of the taxes or to waive some of the taxes on ICT services and products, what would be the impact of that on the economy. And we need to demonstrate that, because the bigger goal, and this is what the SADC ICT ministers have also agreed, is that we must somehow try and make services affordable, and one way is really to see whether we cannot waive or or minimize the taxes that are imposed on ICT services and products. The other aspect of our work also speaks to the affordability of devices, because you will find more and more technology is moving away just from being able to make voice calls, but we are really moving to utilizing data and making sure that you enhance operational effectiveness that comes with the possibilities that are on the internet. And what we have picked up as a country is that the one challenge is really the affordability of smart devices. A lot of the consumers have the small ones, the ones that is popularly known as Okatoshe, but Okatoshe does not really have data abilities. It cannot assist you in getting on the internet and really getting the full scope of technology. So once again, the SADC ministers have also agreed that there must be a push for countries to try and make devices more affordable, and together with our operators, we are working on a project that is really aimed at ensuring that there is universal affordability of devices. The other initiative which really is also outward looking is quality of service, because ensuring access is one thing, but you also want to ensure that the quality of service is optimal. And we have received a high number of complaints from consumers that are really saying, yes, we have connectivity, yes, we have a base station, or yes, we have a tower in our village, but half the time we cannot hear when the person is calling, or if you're trying to do a data connection, the phone is just circling, it's not moving as fast as it should be moving. And therefore, we have then started doing work to see how can we then get the licensees to improve their quality of service. And in the last 6 months that we're reporting, we have finalized the study on the reforms to the quality of service regulations. We have also had engagements with the operators, and the work that has started now, which will end in the last quarter of this financial year, is really to review the regulations so that we can introduce more enhanced measures and more enhanced KPIs to make sure that we improve the user access. So, in a nutshell, those are some of the high-level achievements that we have obtained. And for the 6 months, for the first 6 months of our financial year, we have managed to implement 72% of the KPIs that we had agreed to in terms of our integrated strategic business plan for this particular financial year. Now, we also have experienced some challenges as a regulator, and I think the first one, which is not unique to CREN, but I think that it's a commonality among all ICT and technology-related regulators, is really that the rapid technological advancements, as well as evolving market dynamics, really put the regulator in a big challenge, because what you need to do is, firstly, you must make sure that you are not an obstacle to technological innovation. So you need to be efficient, and you need to ensure that the regulatory framework is responsive to the needs of technology, but also be a front runner in ensuring that you are spearheading the whole digitization agenda. The other one, obviously, is that we run an industry that is quite litigious, and we have had some challenges pertaining to the number of litigation that would be ongoing in the country, as well as primarily the fact that some of this litigation then affects the revenue sources of the regulator, and that sometimes puts us in a bit of a tight position in ensuring that we have adequate revenue to defray the cost of regulation. The other one, obviously, and I think this is the last one, is the Communications Act that we are currently implementing is a 2009 law, and technology evolves. You almost go to bed, and when tomorrow you wake up, there is something new that is happening, and we really just need to expedite the the review and the amendment to the Communications Act to make sure that it is aligned to the digitization agenda. But I think an exciting, an exciting activity that somewhat mitigates this is that government has also started with the crafting of the National Digitization Strategy, which really looks at key activities such as digital literacy, innovation, technology, skills, and these are all things that are pertinent to the technological evolution of our country. So as I move to the end, I really want to say that ICT, and this is our firm belief as regulator, is not one of the many spheres of the economy. So when you speak about agriculture, mining, or any of the other activities, you don't add ICT in that list. And this is why, because ICT is an economic enabler. ICT is one of those sectors, if not the only one, that enables the operational efficiencies of all the other sectors. And we saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic when there was lockdown and nobody could move. The one industry that actually ensured business continuity for all the other industries was ICT. And this is why, as regulator, we are really doing a lot of activities around enhancing and demonstrating that ICT is a socio-economic enabler, and our big change management activities are really aimed at making other industries understand the benefits and the enhancements and the levels of operational efficiency that they can attain by properly inculcating an ICT-centric culture within their operations. And as we continue, our priorities would include actively supporting and fostering the digital transformation agenda, not just of our country, but also of the different spheres of the economy. We are continuing to encourage innovation. We are continuing to encourage and facilitate investments into emerging technologies. And I really want to pause a bit and just speak about investment into technology. This needs to be big on our agenda as a country, because if we speak about the renewable energy sector, for instance, that is coming, or oil and gas, we need digital infrastructure that will effectively support those economies. And this is why it's important that we really focus on investing into emerging technologies as well as digital infrastructure. We also need to recognize the need for a holistic policy as well as a legislative framework to address cybersecurity concerns, because your digitization agenda always needs to be supported by cybersecurity, because digitization really means more people are in the cyberspace, and when there are more people in the cyberspace, then there is more opportunities for cyber criminals to also do their part, and this is why the two also need to go hand in hand. And then finally, it's of course research and development, as well as strengthening collaborations with industry stakeholders, be it locally or internationally, with the primary aim to facilitate knowledge sharing, exchange best practices, as well as to explore new opportunities. So with that, we really want to once again express our appreciation as regulator for this opportunity. Of course, there is a lot of work that we do, and you can visit our website or you can visit our access to information department that can then share some of the work with you, or maybe expand on some of the activities. But I think in a nutshell, that is really where we are as an organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nkembwa, for that very insightful update. I'm sure Namibia appreciates it as much as I do. And it is indeed quite refreshing to hear about the activities, the projects that your institution is undertaking at the moment. And of course, indeed refreshing to know and hear again that technology is an economic enabler. Now, Namibia, unfortunately, that is all the time that we had for today's discussion. We were discussing, we were briefed by Ms. Amelia Ngikembwa. She is the CEO of CRAN, and she was updating the Namibian nation on the progress on strategic implementation of CRAN. Until next time, Namibia, please do follow us on our social media platforms and become part of the GIC. From myself, Hileni Felipe Samunyela, and the entire GIC crew, it's goodbye.